Hi, friends, and welcome back to Dominating Diversity, a space where we open our hearts and minds to people, practices, and possibilities beyond true inclusion. I'm your host, Brooke Tahir, and today I want to begin with a simple question. Have you ever felt completely alone, like the world was moving on and no one noticed you were struggling? Well, for too many people in our communities, that is not a moment, it's a reality. But there's a movement quietly reshaping that reality, and it's called ARK, Acts of Random Kindness. And today, I'm so honored to sit down with the director of ARK, an organization that has wrapped hundreds of people in dignity, support, and the most powerful tool of all, genuine, unconditional kindness. So, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here. So, first
Absolutely.
of all, how do we say your name? It's a long one.
Yes, so my first name is actually Jonasi, pronounced it's basically English equivalent of Jonas with an I at the end. So it's actually Jonasi. And a lot of people also refer to me by my middle name, which is actually, believe it or not, more common, which is Eangano. Yeah, so Jonasi Eangano is some of the names that you'll hear when people are referring to myself, or if they really, really, really know me, they'll use my last name, which is Singehebhuye.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
You know what? Jonasi. That sounds so much easier
We'll keep it there.
than all the rest. Now, I see you studied biomedical science like myself. What did you do in that field and why the drastic change?
Oh, good question.
Mm.
Well, I started off with biomed. I finished that, and I got into health. Um, Mind you, in my educational journey, if you will, I've always done what I do with acts of random kindness, which is actually a movement that I started when I was in high school,
Wow.
very, very young, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been at it for many, many years, over a decade and a half, almost. And essentially how that sort of shaped my medical cause or medical desires, or at that time was just purely, I wanted to get just medicine into just pure medicine. But because I've always worked with people, even throughout that whole ordeal, I sort of really wanted to find a middle point where I could be in giving to the community the best outcomes in terms of health and well-being, and still maintain, that idea of community as well. So why study that in the first place? In terms of background, there is more to it. Like I said, I've always had a desire to serve, and I love biology. I love anatomy. I just love to understand what the human body can
Mm.
do and does do. And I know we're humans, and therefore we're susceptible to a lot of things that can easily go wrong. And so, being someone who's educated on how you can find out what can go wrong, how it goes wrong, and finding the pathways, that's always been my thing.
Yeah. Feels
Uh,
my brother. I am
yeah.
exactly the same. You sound like me.
Uh,
I
well,
love it.
and I think that's why we sort of like, connected in a way because, I knew when you reached out, this was going to be something special because that's why I also read a little bit about your story as well. I was like, this is so cool because,
Oh, thank
yeah,
you
we
so
have a lot of
much.
correlations.
No,
Yeah.
it's really cool. I love medicine, but
Mm,
when I got sick, I started thinking it's difficult for a sick person to treat a sick person.
mm,
But I just care about people. I want to
mm.
help people. I love people. So I want to ask you, can you take us back to the very beginning? Like, what was happening in the world or in your life that made you realize that art needed to exist?
Right. Every single time I tell the story of ARK, it's quite different to what people expect. Because, like I said, I started this when I was very young, and it was a very accidental thing. There was no intention for ARK to be a thing until I realized, oh, geez, it needs to be a thing.
Mhm.
So I remember in 2012, and mind you, maybe even before that, essentially, because I grew up in the church. And so a lot of my upbringing and teachings were always around, loving others, being kind to others, and in my own household with my own parents as well. It's always been the idea of, you got to make sure you're the person that the community needs, others need
Mhm.
as well as yourself, needing yourself and your family and so on. And so I was always surrounded by this idea of giving and being something of value to not just myself, but others as well. And so maybe born inside me from that young age was that idea of, kindness, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I found myself in summer of 2012 at a local park back in the western suburbs of Melbourne. I was an aspiring, if you will, athlete, as well as this person who was obviously very keen in
Yeah. I see
the
that.
health. Yeah. And so in the summer of 2012, I was just hanging out at the park as I would during my practice, where I'll just, kind of do my weekly practice alone. And as I stood there, well, not stood, but as I participated in my sport, um, there's six boys who I remember them very well. They came to where I was sort of stationed because I had like all these cones and different, training gear set up at this local park where I was every Wednesday and every Saturday. Um, and yeah, these boys they started mimicking what I was doing on the pitch as I trained, and it was annoying at first because they started to really intervene rather, or interfere with what I was training with my training session. And so at that time, two things came to mind. It's either I can say, get lost, I don't, I'm training, go away, or an alternative solution, which was get them involved in what I was doing and just, as we would say, YOLO it, if you will, and just let it be. I did go with the second option, which was, yeah, whatever. They're here because obviously they realize that they need something like this. And maybe it's because they don't have it. That's why they're here. Because if they had it, they wouldn't be in the first place. And so I took my station that I had set up and I split it into two. So I stayed where I was, and then I took half of my stationaries, and I actually went and I set up a similar, course for them. And I told them, just watch me and just do what I do, but do it there because I'm obviously training. It's a real thing for me. It's not
Mhm.
just walking around.
Yeah.
So that's where that one act of random kindness towards these six boys, married primary school age kids, very young, probably maybe he had, I don't know, three or four, I'm not sure,
Oh, cute
at that
boys.
time. Yeah, very tiny boys. And that's how ARK was born, because after that, these kids were so smart, they worked out that I had a pattern. Every Wednesday, every Saturday, I was at the park. And so they started coming regularly. And before long, they started calling me coach and all these kind
Oh
of
my
things.
gosh.
And mind you, again, no intention whatsoever to do any of these things. But at that time, it was a realization. I said, oh my goodness, our community needs this. And the reason why these young people are here and are sort of pursuing this type of engagement is because we don't have it. And if we have it, it's only for some, those who can afford it.
Hmm.
And in a split second, I had a light bulb moment. I'm like, this is a need in a community. And
Yeah.
literally, that's how ARK was born, from a one act of random kindness.
Wow.
Mm.
That's absolutely incredible. So your website outlines these incredible areas of work, which I'm absolutely in awe of and so proud of you. Emergency relief, community projects, empowerment, which is empowerment in itself is such a huge thing.
Mm.
But I imagine that behind each action, there's a person. Can you share what a day at ARC really looks like?
Oh, jeez. Um, Yeah, absolutely can. I mean, there's the chaos of ARC where we're running around trying to gather resources every day with emailing and texting and trying to find groups for collaborations. And
Yeah.
then there's the beautiful side where you have all these wonderful people volunteering and doing in the different sectors that you've sort of mentioned there as well. Because we have maybe three key areas of where we look after ARC. First one is community engagement, which is basically open to most people. Second one is education, and the third one is basically the public outreach,
Yeah.
where we go out and like we do the reliefs. We work with the homeless. We do a lot of we do collaboration with church groups, with mosques, with different groups who just go out to the public, and we do either food or we do like items.
Hmm.
Um, for example, blankets, it could be jackets and so on. So partnering up with other groups as well. But for me personally, my biggest focus is education,
Yeah.
because I believe kindness has to be taught nowadays, unfortunately. And so I take kindness into schools
Mm-hmm.
and I teach people the idea or concept of, you know, in order for you to feel valuable and loved, you also need to be able to kind of output that to others because
Yeah.
you can find yourself in others. And this is such a neglected art because we're so me.
Mm-hmm.
We actually forget that it's by giving, you actually grow quite a lot because you're going beyond yourself. And so a lot of my investment is in schools. And so even for those listening, for those watching this, if they're teachers, that's what ARK is about. And we want to work with schools and students, and principals and so on, community groups even, who have especially the youth, the young adults, even smaller primary school age kids. We need to teach them kindness early. And so my day for that, for example, would be emailing schools, would be getting into meetings with schools, obviously taking the workshops into schools, 3 to 4 days a week, I'll, work with one school or and so on. If it's for our weekly feeds, for example, I work with a group called Bread Hub, and another one called Food Hub. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and there's another few groups as well that are very committed to the work that we do, and we all work together to deliver the food outreach programs. So Baker's Delight, God bless this Baker's Delight,
They're good,
Woolies,
aren't they?
so good.
Yeah.
Baker's Delight, Woolies and Coles, and also Aldi.
Yeah.
They have a lot of food that they give us. And so again, in a day's work for ARK, it means collecting food. It means sending out volunteers to go make networks and connections with high figures or other community groups. And essentially, that's what it really, really looks like. I mean, I can detail step by step, but as a broad, that's sort of what we look at. And then our community engagement is where we try to run these monthly programs where, for example, it could be movie night, it could be trivia night, it could be a sporting event, it could be just anything fun where the community can just come together and embrace diversity, embrace this idea of culture. And we really teach a lot on the importance of indifference. Indifference is one of these things that just separates human beings, and it comes with stigma, it comes with
Yeah.
prejudice. And if we
Yeah.
don't teach again indifference and why it's so bad
Yeah.
for us as human beings, then we're going to continue this cycle of hate. And hate comes because one, people don't want to be kind, and two, it's because we're so full of ourselves,
Yeah.
and we
Preach
just
there,
want to,
friend.
yeah, we're so
Yeah.
full of ourselves. And I'm just like, people, guys, there's more to life than
Yeah.
just you. Unfortunately, that's
Yeah.
just the
That's
reality
right.
we live in.
Yeah.
And again, for me, it's about teaching this now because
Yeah.
expectation was, anyone can do it. No, not anyone can do it because if that was the case, then
Mm-hmm.
everyone will be doing it.
Yeah.
So people need reminders, people need acts of random kindness done to them,
Right.
in order for them to realize that, you know what, this is how life should be. We should
Yeah.
not just fixate on this idea of I need, I need. No, share the love, share the
That's right.
kindness, and really
Yeah.
grow community together.
Not everyone is as lucky as their peer, I guess. And
Mm,
I spend a lot of my time teaching about differences and, variance in the brain and how we should be looking at each other and pulling strengths from each other instead of judging someone upon looking at them. And
mm,
so I feel you there. And it's definitely one of those spaces where some people can do it, some people can get the message across, but it's so important that we keep sending on that message so that one day when our kids grow up, we live in a world where there's not so much judgment and hate. Get away from that. It's important.
mm.
So powerful because in a world that moves fast, sometimes the kindest thing we can do is slow down and really see each other, right?
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. So I think people hear random acts of kindness and imagine small, sweet gestures, which are beautiful. But your
Mm,
work goes so much deeper. It's structural, it's intentional. I mean, you've already spoken so much to that. It gives me goosebumps because when kindness becomes the system, not the exception, that's where real change happens.
absolutely.
Yeah. So now, I heard, I read that you have met the beautiful prince and princess or the Duke and the Duchess, right? Now we want to know, what was that like? What are
Yeah.
they like? Are they
Yeah.
are they cool, or are they like uptight, or give me the goss?
Right. Back in 2018, I had the privilege, of course, of meeting the prince and the princess of that Duchess, rather. And it was awesome. They're very cool people,
Yeah,
down to
I
earth.
knew it.
And you can just tell, even if you've never met them, I mean, they got out of the system, if you will, because of that.
Hmm.
They were just very cool people. I mean, there's when you meet them, there's all this protocol that you have to go through.
Yeah.
You can only say so much, you can only do so much. Even they can only say and do so much.
Hmm.
But when they're in public, they were, just almost like ordinary people.
Yeah.
With just extra bodyguards and extra, people and
Yeah.
cameras and so on. But when I met them, it was a privilege for sure, because we got there because of ARK, for example.
Yeah.
They're very big on service. I mean, Prince, who was it?
Harry,
I think, well, Prince, no, there's Prince,
William.
William, he's also very big on charity,
Yeah.
and Harry is
Yeah.
also very big on charity. As a matter of fact, a lot of the people in the royal family are very big on charity,
Yeah.
and so every now and then they run all these events where they invite different people doing good things in the community, if you will. And I'm very minor in my own right, so it was quite surprised, because there's people doing incredible work out there, and I always want to acknowledge that as well. But the little that we do for some reason was recognized this time around, and we got to meet these cool people.
Hmm.
Megan Markle, I think that's her name.
Yeah.
She was awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, Prince was also very down to earth as well. So it
I
was really,
knew it. Don't
yeah.
believe what you read in the tabloids, people. Don't believe
No, not
it.
always.
No. And what a privilege. And I feel you have a bit of imposter syndrome there, because what you're doing is pretty bloody cool.
Mm.
So I know you've met hundreds of people through ARC. You would have seen people come, people go. And even with my work, I have people who I will always remember. They made
Mm.
a mark on my heart, if you will. Is there one story, maybe one face that you carry with you that still moves you?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly speaking, the young people that I've met throughout this journey have been incredible. I've had a lot of mentors, I've gone to a lot of schools, I've met a lot of high level figures, governmental figures. I've traveled interstate and overseas for this work as well. So I've met a lot of people.
Yeah,
But to be honest with you, when it comes to memorable people, I don't remember the high figures. I remember the grassrooted people that I
yeah,
meet,
I
that I've
get
met.
you.
The
Yeah,
children's impact has been incredible on me because they've actually catalyzed a growth that's amazing. Because when a child is sincere, you see kindness without barriers,
yeah.
and
And
I'm like,
you see them
damn,
grow. You see them grow.
it's
Flourish.
so
It's
amazing. Like
rewarding.
it's
Yeah,
so rewarding because then you've been, I guess, a substrate, if you will,
yeah,
in this child's growth, and you've seen them become a full-fledged human being who's undergone through your programs, teaching about value, teaching about the importance of gratitude, and being mindful and thankful towards people, and again, being kind to all people, irrespective of color, religion,
yeah.
what you prefer to do in life. And so that's been obviously the most incredible thing. But I will name a few people. There's one man who's in recent years, maybe the last 3, 4 years, Peter Cullen, who's actually the founder of RedLink Australia. A shout out to him. He has been pinnacle in the work that I've done in the last couple of years. In that, he's been there for me to offer wisdom on
Mm,
how to tap into different resources and how to um, I suppose, maneuver ARC through the, different areas it needs to go into, and also fine tune what we do as well, and how to basically produce the best work as an organization. But greater than that, he's made himself available 24/7 basically for our work. He's opened up his own space. So they have like a private home,
mm.
and they've sort of turned his private home into a bit of a hub, a community hub. And we are allowed there anytime we want.
Wow.
They've got a garden, they've got a sport facility, they've got like a hall with basically you can do programs in there. And Peter Cullen has really changed the game, if you will, for ARK. And then, of course, there's the ARK volunteers as well that have been there from the very beginning. In recent days as well, we've had new volunteers as well that come through. All memorable people. Another figure that I need to definitely mention by name is Lisa Timby. She is this lady who's, my goodness, she's like, you have an idea, she puts it on paper, and tomorrow she's already working on
Yeah.
everything. And
A
she
powerhouse, huh?
oh, she moves very fast, and
Yeah.
I'm like, geez, okay, because I'm here, I'm there, but she's so structured to a point where things are moving so quickly,
Yeah.
and
You need a
I
mover
love
and
her.
a
I love
shaker.
exactly right,
Everyone
and
needs a mover and a shaker.
she's made my past um my development rather very beautiful. And then recently, there's one girl who's come into my life recently as a volunteer, and she like this. We're talking about maybe the past maybe 7, 8 months. Kumo, a very beautiful friend of mine, and she's just so lovely. We do these, public outreaches, right, where we go feed people. It does not matter the time, the day, she's available. She avails herself to come do this work with me. And sometimes we're just a duo who go to different homes and deliver the food, go pick up bread from all over Victoria almost. And like I said already, I mentioned Bread Hub, Brendan Murphy, ZP, and everybody involved in that team. They're turning the game around for people facing homelessness, people who are hungry,
Mm.
disadvantaged. I could go on, honestly speaking, but there's so many people to thank.
I think it's the kind of story that sort of stays in your soul. Like
Mm,
it reminds me that behind every service is various complicated human beings who just need someone to believe in them. But
absolutely.
personally, I grew up in poverty, and sometimes we didn't have much to eat, and my mama, she felt lost often, and then we would feel different because
Mm,
we didn't have what the other kids had, and
mm,
um, we didn't have the community that you're talking about. So the change that you're making, it's the kind of change that could have saved me, a
mm,
child, from a lot of pain.
mm,
So just know that personally, from my heart to your heart, you and your team are doing life-changing work for a lot
mm.
of people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do not get emotional in
Mm,
podcasts, but you really are doing life-changing work. So now, for people listening right now, maybe with tears in their eyes like me, or a fire in their chest, what can they do? How can they be part of this movement, and what impact would it make for your organization? How can I help? How can we help? I know so I my head is ringing with ways that I can help, but
yeah.
how can people help?
Yeah. Kindness is one of these things. It's like I said, I'm calling it a skill now because it's become a
Mm-mm.
skill. It's becoming something that we need to learn. Acts of random kindness doesn't have to be under the brand acts of random kindness. How you can help is please see people before problems.
Yeah,
We need to see people before problems.
yeah,
Before differences, we need to see people.
yeah,
Um, there's a lot of people out there doing amazing things. I've been in situations where people have been termed different things, organizations have been called different things because of this idea of I don't agree with you. So even if you're doing a good work, I don't want anything to do with that. And I'm not saying that sometimes that's not it's always a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all. But I think kindness needs to really be something that kind of defeats the idea of, oh, she does not sound like me. He does
mm-mm.
not look like me. They probably got themselves in that situation. So let's
Yeah,
just leave them as they are because,
yeah,
they should have done better in life, for example.
yeah,
So if anyone really is to be part of this movement, even without ever meeting me or being part of the brand that we run, just be kind. Just remember that. Just be kind to people. It's
and it's
very simple.
free. It's
It's
free to be
free.
kind, and
It's
it doesn't
so
take
free.
time to be kind.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
it's such a powerful thing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
but for those who do want to get involved, like Brooke would kindly share all our social media, our email, and we're looking for volunteers always. like if anyone knows how to tap into more schools, especially rural, anywhere closer to the CBD, please contact us. And if you're a teacher working in schools, what you're hearing here is what we take into schools.
Yeah.
And when we take into schools, we want the students to understand, guys, you are like a granule in the
Mm-hmm.
system, all right, but a very important granule. But if you begin to neglect other people, begin to come up with all these ideas to separate,
Mm-hmm.
then we're breaking society. We're breaking the very fabric that could potentially make our world a better place. You have a
Yeah.
very important role to play, which is to bind, bring your ideas to life through people and
Mm-hmm.
make the community a better place. So
Yeah.
teachers, community leaders, government people, anyone, we're welcoming to all, and we're happy to share everything we have with you guys as well.
Beautiful. I mean, these what you're saying is so important, especially when you say rural schools. I grew up in a rural school,
Oh, nice.
and in a high populated Indigenous area, and there are so many kids that are broken,
Mm,
and they're broken because of the neglect and how they've grown up.
mm,
The kindness drips out of them because
mm.
they've seen bad role models, or they've seen unkindness.
Yeah.
So to have that instilled back into them by role models like you guys is
Mm,
incredibly important. And I think that it's very valuable work. So before we close, what would you say to someone who feels overwhelmed by the state of the world, who wants to do something? And what I mean by that is,
mm, mm,
let's go back to me. 10 years ago, I'm walking around feeling no purpose at all. I have
mm,
nothing. I'm drowning in debt. I completely overwhelmed by the world.
mm.
What would you say to someone that wants to do something with their life but needs to get over that overwhelmed feeling and feeling alone?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I forget the name of the flower. There's a very particular flower that grows only in the hardest of environments in the world. Please search it up, that flower, because there's a big lesson in that flower.
Mm-mm.
Now, that flower reminds me of myself. It reminds me of a lot of people. Around you, the world might be shaking, it might be breaking, it might be tumbling down. And a lot of people have heard the sayings, oh, if you're sinking, once you hit rock bottom, you have nowhere else left to go except up. You're so important in the fabric of society, whether you feel like, you know, you're not. The truth is you are. And a lot of people need to start seeing themselves as key puzzle pieces to making anything become even more beautiful. There's a reason why you're here. If you weren't supposed to be here, you wouldn't be here. But
Yeah,
because you're here, you were supposed to be here.
yeah,
Sometimes, it's hard to find your footing because, yes, everything is so overwhelming. But the moment you realize, oh my goodness, I have breath in my lungs, I have 2 feet if you have them, even if you don't have 2 feet, you have breath in your lungs. That in itself is testament to the fact that you should be there.
yeah,
Now, the next part is if you cannot see value in yourself in that moment, look outward. Look at the people around you and say, oh my gosh, that person there is blind, for example, or physically blind. So if you go to them and offer them a hand, for example, just cross the road, for example, you've just added value in someone's life.
yeah.
And believe me, you doing that one action inside you, like a ray of light opens. And if you continue doing those random acts of kindness, you build a character that becomes so powerful. And before long, you have a testimony. And I'll keep telling people this. If you are surrounded by mess, if your life is a mess per se, one day learn to come out of that mess, all right, through these, seeing the world from, again, not just about you, about, being holistic in your approach to seeing the world. And then once you come out or you begin to really grow as a person, use your mess and turn it into a message
Hmm.
for other people. All
Wow.
right. Don't die with what all those amazing learnings that you've undertaken, or you've had to overcome. All right. Use that what you're doing, Brooke. You've gone through a host of things and now you're turning it into something positive. So your mess has become a message for not just myself, Jonasi, for anyone listening, and for your children and for your children's children. And that's the legacy. All right. The legacy is there. But does that mean you're not going to have days where you don't feel overwhelmed? Of course you will. You're human. I'm human. Even in this work that I do, I'm constantly overwhelmed by how much more I'm not doing or
Mm.
by how much more I need to do, for example. But because my focus is not just myself, it's beyond myself, I always find room to grow, one, but also accept the fact that I'm still contributing, even if it's small. Mm.
Oh, very powerful and lovely words. You have a way of talking. It's very beautiful.
Mm.
So, um, thank you truly for the work you do, for the way you love, and for reminding us that kindness is not a luxury, but sometimes it's a lifeline.
Mm.
So, one more question, and I'm quite curious about this one. I promise it's the last one.
Not a problem.
I see that I've seen that a fair bit of your work started based around women and children.
Yep.
Is that personal for you? And yeah, is that, would you share?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to share.
Mm,
Actually, like I said, originally there was no real plan. But once ARK began to form by 2013, I remember there was one girl, my sisters actually said the exact same thing. You know, in the community, right? Just generally speaking, whenever there's something good, so for example, something that elevates people, it's
mm,
usually sort of tailored towards males. Males always seem to have a small advantage
mm.
in this type of, you know, um, opportunities, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
And that really got to me. I'm one of eight, all
Yeah.
right? And
Me
so,
too.
and
One of 10. One of
no,
10.
oh wow, there you
Yeah.
go. And in my big family, unfortunately, the numbers between males and females are quite skewed. We have way more females than we do males. There's only a couple of us, right? Now when my sisters come to me and say, "Oh, how come this program is always tailored towards males? Or how come there's always males encouraged to do this program? And although they say it's open to all, but how come only males go? And how come I'm so restricted? Even from a parent's point of view, like in my household, all eight of us super athletes,
Yeah.
but even I can confess that I got more of an opportunity to explore my talent. Because my father and mother were willing to invest in me more.
Yeah.
That's not to say they didn't invest in my sisters and brothers and the others. They did. Actually, tennis was basically a home sport for us, and every single person was given that opportunity. Um, but things did quite show. I was the only one who was allowed to do multiple sports in a way financially. Again, being the oldest male and being
Mm,
somebody who my parents possibly saw like, oh, this person can actually bring something back. But I do believe my sisters were equally talented. Now, ARC started off as a sport-based organization. We were using sport as a platform to bring the youth and children into, learning opportunities and so on, right? So my sisters really moved me a lot, and they really challenged my perspectives and perception of the world. Because, when the opportunities are always about you or you're always involved in opportunities, you can easily become blinded to the reality around you. And they slapped me in the face with their words, like, why is everything always male-centric? And I said, geez, I never really saw it like that. And so ARC purposely became basically a platform where we're literally creating opportunities predominantly to serve women. And these were women of color. So we had a lot of Southeast Asians in our programs, a lot of African girls, of course. We had some girls from Europe as well, but the smaller countries like Malta, Italy, and so on. And so that was basically the real catalyst behind ARC being very female centric, and a lot of our programs were sort of tailored towards them. And children, wherever the women go, if the mothers were involved, the children will naturally come. And so that's where the idea, and also not to forget that ARC was actually born literally from children playing football. So that's sort of where the two streams or two groups of people sort of kind of came. And we didn't put a lot of emphasis on males whatsoever. To date, we still don't. But whenever we have like open community programs, of course, anyone can come to those.
no, that's
Mm.
really wonderful. I mean, here it can be slightly different, I guess, but like half of my family's in Indonesia. My
Mhm.
in-laws are my sisters, and they are Islam, and
Mm.
they are Southeast Asian, and obviously it's completely different there. Like you're saying, everything is male centric, and the girls should stay home and they should look after their parents. And if they're at uni and their parents get sick, too bad, you can't finish. You go home and look after your parents. And that's always been something really close to my heart.
Mm,
That's always been something that I want to see change, because if a woman has got or someone who identifies as a woman, if they have got the ability to do something amazing with their life, they should be able to flourish.
absolutely.
However, culture does get in the way of
Mm,
that in some places. But please, please ignore. This isn't trying to offend anyone or anything at all like that. But really, it's me saying, if you've got it, do it.
yeah.
And there's other ways to get help as well.
Mm,
And this really proves that as well. So thank you, I guess. So luckily for
mm,
you, that's it for today's episode of Dominating Diversity. I hope you're leaving this conversation with a little more warmth in your heart, a little more belief in the power of compassion, and some motivation to do that one thing that you've always thought about doing that's going
mm.
to help people. You can learn about ARK, learn more about ARK at ark-vic.org.au, and I encourage you to follow them, support them, or just remember what they stand for, because it is warm and it can carry around with you for free, free of charge, living in your head. And you can take these practices and use them every day. So until next time, be kind, be brave, and never underestimate the power of showing up. Thank you.
Thank you.